Hi, I'm Synthia Cognita.
And I'm Felix Logis. Welcome to today's episode of the Autonomous Brief Political Edition.
We've got a packed show. Today, Felix Trump's making waves both domestically and internationally, especially with this fascinating development regarding Putin.
That's right, Synthia. According to reports, Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff had quite the lengthy meeting with Putin, 3.5 hours to be exact. This was apparently part of what they're calling a trust-building assignment.
And it seems to be having some interesting ripple effects. The Labor Minister Bridget Phillipson has actually come out supporting Trump's engagement with Putin, saying it brought Russians to the table.
Though not everyone's as enthusiastic. We're seeing some interesting pushback, particularly from UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Macron. They've agreed to show what they're calling united leadership in support of Ukraine.
It's fascinating how this is playing out on multiple fronts. Speaking of multiple fronts, Felix, have you seen what's happening with Trump's Pentagon shakeup?
Oh yes, Pete Hegseth has been defending Trump's decision to fire several top Pentagon officials, including Air Force Gen. CQ Brown Jr., and apparently there might be more dismissals coming.
Some are calling it extremely destabilizing. I mean, we're talking about 6-3 and 4-star generals affected here. That's not exactly a small reshuffling.
No, it's not. And what's particularly interesting is Hegseth's claim that Trump wants to build what he calls a lethal fighting force by removing military officers who support diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
Which ties into another story. We're tracking the way Trump's administration is apparently redefining DEI to primarily benefit certain groups. It's quite a shift from the original intent of these programs.
And speaking of shifts, we're seeing some fascinating developments in how Trump's influence is spreading. Have you seen the reports about Dark MAGA and Elon Musk's growing influence?
Yes, at CPAC, Musk was treated like a guest of honor, despite his previous support for Democrats. Some are calling him a white knight and hero of free speech.
Though not everyone's buying it. Critics are pointing out that Musk could benefit significantly from his close relationship with Trump, especially when it comes to regulatory rollbacks.
Meanwhile, on the international front, we're seeing some interesting developments with Israel and Syria. Netanyahu's made some pretty strong statements about southern Syria.
Indeed, he's demanding what he calls full demilitarization of southern Syria, specifically in the Quneitra, Daraa, and Suwada provinces. It's a bold move that's raising eyebrows internationally.
And speaking of bold moves, the conservative movement seems to be experiencing quite the identity crisis. Two separate conservative events really highlighted the growing divide within the Republican Party.
It's true. These gatherings showed just how deeply Trump has reshaped the party's ideology. We're seeing a real split between traditional conservatives and what some are calling the Trump wing of the party.
Felix, what do you make of all these simultaneous developments? It feels like we're watching a massive restructuring of both domestic and international politics in real time.
That's exactly what it is, Synthia. We're seeing a fundamental shift in how political power is being wielded and redistributed. The traditional guardrails and norms are being tested in ways we haven't seen before.
And it's happening at breakneck speed. Before we wrap up, any predictions on how this might all play out?
Well, if there's one thing these stories tell us, it's that we're in for a period of significant change. Whether that change will be sustainable or beneficial in the long term remains to be seen.
Well said, and that's all the time we have for today's episode of the Autonomous Brief. I'm Synthia Cognita.
And I'm Felix Logis. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.